It's the Brad and John Show.
October 10th, it's 10/10/25. This is the B Block, the Bravo Block. I mentioned the date because of the fact that people are listening real time on 104.5 FM, Westplex Talk, or on the stream. We'll say, well, we know what day it is. But when you're listening to the future on on bjshow.co and bjshow.us, you may not know what the date is, and this will give you some reference. John, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it, Brad. Oh, can I sing it?
Yes, go ahead.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
You were right on key that time, John. You nailed it. Ladies, one more time, and then we do this.
It's number 3.
Okay, this is continuation of the A Block, which John was talking about, the purchase of Dominion voting systems by Scott, Leiendecker, is that his name?
Scott Leiendecker, yeah.
And he runs a company. Now, explain to me what KNOWiNK was. Is that the thing where you walk up and you sign the iPad deal? Is that his deal?
Yeah, it's the software. And then I think I think we actually mentioned this company, if memory serves. Do you recall the story of how the St. Louis City Election Board had a bunch of their iPads stolen?
I do. That was part of this thing, right?
Well, no, I think we mentioned it because KNOWiNK technology is used in St. Louis City, and I think that's the last time we mentioned the company. But yeah, they're nationwide, and what I loved about it, I don't have the quote in front of me, but there's a quote from the Democrat elections director in New Mexico saying, hey, I know this Leiendecker is, I know Scott, and I know he's a Republican, but we had the greatest experience with KNOWiNK as technology, and he's always been, the word she used was transparent and open. So like Scott has been able to take a controversial topic in technology and somehow manage to take some of the controversy out of it. And as I say, Brad, if you look at a guy like Denny Hoskins, who is a rock-ribbed conservative, and you go through some of the troglodyte, knuckle-dragging comments on social media, you see people question Denny Hoskins that he's not doing enough about election security. What more can you possibly want? You get what I'm saying? I guess my point is, even if you're a Republican who has Democrats and Republicans praising him, there's still going to be people on both sides, quote unquote, both sides, who say, then their machines are rigged. I want to be in the room myself counting them.
Well, the interesting thing about this is I'm a technology guy. I love technology. But by the same token, I'm the guy that's always saying, hey, maybe technology has gone too far. There's something about the fact that when you fill out a paper ballot, and even if it's the Scantron kind of thing where you fill in the little circle or whatever the deal is, there's something about the fact that there's a paper trail of you casting your ballot, and if there's something that needs to be checked, they can grab the paper ballots and run them through the machines again. You know what I'm saying?
Agree. And there's ways I don't mean to interrupt, Brad, but there's ways in modern day that you can say, okay, we can keep every paper ballot,
right,
and we keep it for X period of time, and then we get rid of them.
Exactly. And the whole point of it is having my business run on computers since 1984 when I started my first business. I can tell you the times that I've had crashes and things like that. And for a while, remember where they went to the touchscreen voting, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a recipe for disaster because purposely they did not connect those to the internet, and they had
so to avoid quote unquote hacking, correct?
Right, but the problem with them was each individual voting station had its own little memory card or whatever they used, and if that crashed, let's say you have a voting day and it's 6:55 when the polls are getting ready to close, that one crashes, all those people's votes for that day are gone, at least with the paper ballot. And essentially that's what this whole thing, I think isn't his system essentially based on the fact that they're using the Scantron paper ballots? Isn't that what he does?
I believe so. And you and I both show our age by saying Scantron.
Right.
Which probably went out of business in 1989.
Yes, but
I think old people, like Gen Xers like me and boomers like you, know exactly what you mean. Yeah, you're right, Brad.
Right. Okay. Ready for number 2?
Well, no, I will just point out that I agree with you on technology going too far. Yesterday, I was listening to my favorite radio show, and it seems like jingle composers have been replaced by a brilliant man who's able to do, adversongs.com.
You're going to give me grief again, right?
I'm not, Brad. I'm praising you for it.
There's a story behind that which is somewhat elating to me and somewhat humbling at the same time, which is to the point where I guess it comes down to the old thing that I've used for a long time. If you have to explain it, it's never going to go.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, by the way, I'm just over here in my pod.
Never mind.
Whatever a pod is, according to that song. All I know is I'm ready for number 2.
It's time for Brad's number 2. It's time for Brad's number 2.
John, I'm going to ask you a question. Is Josh Hawley going to become a Democrat?
No, but let me guess. You think he's leaning towards some big government solutions, don't you?
There's the story which I read yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday, and he was criticizing the fact that the Amazon CEO makes $40 million and the average Amazon employee makes less than $40,000. And he was saying, how is this possible in the country? How is this possible in the United States? Isn't that like Democratic mantra kind of stuff? Isn't that what that is?
If we would have heard that 10 years ago from Bernie Sanders, we would not have batted an eye.
Right. But from Josh Hawley, it's like, okay, Josh Hawley's saying? Because you know what? I'm not wild about the fact that any CEO makes $40 million, but I am a firm believer, and this sounds corny as hell, I'm a firm believer that as an American, which I am, not a Republican, a Democrat, but as an American in general, if you are born in the worst possible conditions, this is not India with a caste system. You can rise above everything and become something that no one would ever expect. And perfect example, we have a guy who, according to a couple of my friends, doesn't do anything, but a guy who had very humble beginnings, born and raised in North City, who used to wash cars for Dave Sinclair, who is now the governor of our state of Missouri. And the point I make is that not only did Mike Kehoe rise up through the ranks, but he's a very wealthy man due to the fact that he made a lot of right business decisions. He ran Osage Vans for a while, bought his own car dealership, sold his car dealerships. You know he made some cash. He's got some coin in the bank over that. I find it fascinating that Josh Hawley is essentially saying, well, this guy's making $40 million a year and his employees are making less than $40,000. I mean, that's the way things are. You know, once again, there are people that come from nothing. I mean, at one point in time, I've talked about this all the time. I love reading business biographies because you see these people as these multimillionaires or now billionaires, and you go, oh, that guy was probably born into a well-to-do household. His dad probably was
with a silver spoon.
With a silver spoon. Or in my case, when Steve Casper was born, he was born with a silver microphone in his mouth. But that's a whole other thing.
There you go.
But the point being is, why is Hawley doing this? I don't understand it.
Here's the 60-second lesson from all this. There is no country for corporate America anymore. And 20 years ago and 30 years ago, if you were a Republican, you reflexively defended business. You were a Chamber of Commerce Republican. And if it's good for business, it's good for America. And today, you look around at companies run by George Soros and Mark Zuckerberg and formerly Jack Dorsey. And you look at these big corporations and you look at their pride parades and you look at them firing workers for not getting a COVID vaccine. And you think, maybe big corporate America isn't our best friend. There is no country for big companies anymore. And Josh Hawley is showing, look, I know that as a Republican, you think that I'm reflexively going to defend big business, but that's not who we are as a Republican Party anymore. And Josh Hawley, you can make an argument, Brad, is ahead of the party on this. And he's looking at 2028, and he says J.D. Vance can be the Trump establishment guy, and I'm going to be the, what about that Amazon worker? I was on the front lines of Boeing. Watch me here in this film documentary, marching with the Boeing guys.
John, I'll give you a perfect example. I read this biography the other day. Don't know how I found it, but it was interesting. Julia Stewart, or it is Julia Stewart. Have you ever heard the name of this woman?
No, I never heard of her.
Born in 1955. In 1971, she was 16 years old. She started work worked for International House of Pancakes as a waitress, okay? You ready for that?
I'm ready.
Okay. After college and before returning to IHOP, she was president of Applebee's domestic division. Here's the interesting part of it. She rose up through the ranks. She worked as a waitress at IHOP, and then she went over to Applebee's, and she became president of Applebee's, but not the CEO. And the CEO position was open, and she applied for it, and they said, nope, we don't want a woman as president or CEO of Applebee's. So she became disenchanted, and she went back to IHOP. And she led IHOP through 18 consecutive quarters of growth. And then guess what she did?
What'd she do, Brad?
The company that owned IHOP with her as CEO bought Applebee's. So in other words, the company that she rose up through the ranks and became president of, but they would not let her be CEO. She quits, goes essentially across the street to another food business, and essentially, does her thing there. Very, very successful. And they turn around, and she's the CEO of IHOP. No longer anymore. The company was like, I think it's called, what's it called? It's called, had some corporate name. Dine Brands Global Incorporated.
I thought you were going to say Donzi Communications.
No, Dine Brands Incorporated, Global Incorporated. They bought Applebee's, so she ultimately became the CEO of the company that wouldn't have her
That's quite a great story, Brad.
As Applebee's.
You know what the Bible says? The rejected stone is now the cornerstone.
Is that really a part of the Bible?
Yeah.
Pastor Brad should know that, but he doesn't. Okay.
It's also in a song, Brad, by Guru called You Know My Steez.
Okay, ready for number one?
Yeah, let's do it.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
It is my number one. For those of you who peruse my Facebook page from time to time, you will know this story. John, I didn't talk about this yesterday. Wednesday, I go to a local area schnook store. And as I'm walking through the parking lot, did you see this on my Facebook page, John?
No, I'm under the age of 60. I'm not on Facebook.
I was walking through you talk about stuff on my Facebook page from time to time, but...
Yeah, I know. I haven't gone in a while, though.
Okay, I'm walking through the parking lot, and two nice ladies approach me, both of who have clipboards. And you know the idea of having a clipboard. If you have a clipboard, you are in authority. So these two ladies came up to me.
Oh, Brad, I'm going to love this story already.
They came up to me with their clipboards, and they say, hey, we're collecting petitions for gerrymandering. And being like the guy I am, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to play dumb. So I say, I like Jerry. Is he running for office? And
That's so good.
And they both sort of like, no. This is a petition that's going to go on the ballot for gerrymandering. You know about this, John? Of course you do, right?
Yeah, we've only talked about it 12 to 15 times on the show.
Right. Okay. So the one lady says to me, this is sort of funny. She looks at me and she says, "You're from not around here, are you?" And I go, "Why would you say that?" She says,
"Was she black?"
No, they were two white women.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the funny part of this is, let me give you a little bit more information. I was in what some people would consider to be the parking lot of a North County Schnucks, okay? So
yeah, that's why I asked if she was black.
Right. So she explained to me what the petition's all about. I'm playing dumb, and she says, "I don't look like I'm around from here." And she says, "What's your zip code?" And I say, 90210. And they look at each other and goes, "Where's that?" I go, "That's Beverly Hills. That's a joke." And so she says to me, "Well, you can't do it if you're a resident of California." I go, "I'm not a resident of California. I'm a resident of Missouri." So they make me show me I show her my driver's license. Okay, I'm going like, okay, I'm getting interrogated in the parking lot.
That's bold of you. Okay.
Right. So I showed her my driver's license.
Is this how boomers hit on each other in public?
No. So I signed the petition, and then they look at it, and they have a discussion, and they go, "Oh, you can't be on this petition." And I go, "Why not?" And they didn't give me an answer. So I said to her, I said, "What are you going to do?" And she goes, "We're going to strike out your name." And I said, "Let me take a picture of this." And the one woman says, "Go ahead." And the other one, "No, he can't take a picture of this petition because there's people's names on it."
Because there's other people's names on it.
But
yeah,
John,
I see. Brad, hold on. Why did they reject your signature?
I don't know. I mean,
is it because they were told by John Bosch
Well,
what to look for when they're harassing people for petitions.
I don't know. And the crazy thing about this is I found it interesting. They wouldn't let me take a picture of the page that I was like maybe the 14th or 15th. You know, I was down the page.
Let me interrupt. I agree with them. If I was a signature gatherer and some old guy came up and was like, let me take a picture, I'd be like, no, like there's other people's personal information on here.
But John, this is public information.
I know, but I understand that argument, but just on principle, I certainly wouldn't let you take a picture, but I wouldn't let anybody take a picture.
Can't you and I mean, you won't drive down to Jefferson City, but I can. But can't I go down to what's the dude, Denny Hoskins?
You could if you wanted to. Yeah.
Can't I drive down?
Considering how little you value your time, I could totally imagine you driving to Jeff City.
Can't I drive down there and say, hey, the petitions for whatever, can I take a look at those? Aren't they public?
I wonder why you were rejected, and you put your real name and address on the And Brad, why would you sign that petition?
because you know, I'll do any, you know, you think,
oh my God.
Well, hold on a minute now. They ask me nicely, and to the point where I think this whole gerrymandering thing, I think it's stupid, ridiculous garbage. Okay. And and here we go, and they're talking about doing it in Utah, they're in California, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I heard a guy the other day. Remember we talked about this 2-3 weeks ago. I heard a guy say, here's what you do. You get the map of the state and you put it blocks. You do blocks, just squares. And
yeah,
what you
completely unconstitutional because it would violate the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But it's a great, as I've pointed out, Brad, Dedum Tots, discussed this many times on the show. It's a great idea for simplistic people and people who move their lips when they read and say, yeah, make the state a bunch of squares and rectangles.
John, take your headphones off for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Jamfob, yes, Jamfob, J-A-M-F-O-B.
That's all I say.
I didn't say you move your lips when you read, Brad. I'm just saying it's a common argument of people who do that. And in 2 minutes, we're going to prove that you don't move your lips when you read because you're going to be able to tell Taylor Swift quotes from that of a female politician.
John, going back to this, I don't really understand. See, to me, it's but the gerrymandering thing is to the point where I think to myself, it's all kabuki. You know, I mean, once again, put squares, and as the population changes, just move the squares around. You know what I mean? Nothing to it.
Our new drop for next week, I'm going to send you a clip of the Great Kabuki being introduced in WCCW World Class Championship Wrestling. Every time you mention Kabuki, I think you should play the Great Kabuki.
There was really a wrestler called the Great Kabuki?
Yeah. Allegedly, his son, according to kayfabe storyline, was the Great Muda, who was one of my favorite wrestlers around 89, 90. He wasn't actually his son, but in kayfabe he was.
I love kayfabe. Okay, we have to take a break. We have the Showgirl, the last of the Showgirl series, and who's the facing Taylor Swift this morning?
You'll find out when we come back, Brad.